I've probably played and beat every Sonic game in existence. I played the good, the bad, the mid, the peak, the underrated, and the overrated, aka Sonic Adventure 2. So rest assured, I have my Sonic certification, longtime fan, since I was 4 years old. I'm here to tell you whether you should spend $60 to get Sonic Frontiers, or wait for a sale, or even pass on it entirely. I'll cut to introduction. This is unedited, unscripted, fresh out of my raw experience. I'm halfway through the second island, and this is gonna be spoiler free. I think you shouldn't spoil this game on anyone, as the story actually matters in this game. About 5 hours of playtime, so let's hit it. Okay, I'm gonna start talking about the most anticipated thing about Sonic Frontiers, which is the story. I'm here to tell you, if you grew up with Sonic Adventure, okay, if you grew up with Adventure Sonic, Unleashed Sonic, Black Knight Sonic, the Sonic from the OVA, the Sonic X Sonic, this will hit right at home. I like to call it Shonen Sonic. This is not your Saturday morning childish, lame Sonic you used to see the past 12 years or so, as Sonic Frontiers' story and character writing is better than ever. And it's not just Sonic. Characters like Amy Rose, Tails got a little revamp too. If you read the comic, you will also feel at home, no forced humor, and nothing too edgy. I love the character interactions and the new voice direction. That's all I can say to remain spoiler free. The story is probably the best in the series so far, from just like the first 5 hours, and yeah, I think you should be hyped. As for gameplay, I would like to tackle the first thing people are most concerned about, which is cyberspace. I'll say this, it's miles better than anything you played in Forces. So Forces is out of the picture for the remainder of the video. It's not even on the same bar, it's not even close. It was much more enjoyable. It wasn't something you'd rather avoid, or neither it felt like a pace breaker. Sonic Frontiers is one of those games that it plays and feels much more enjoyable and fun than watching it. I was one of those who were skeptical. I was always skeptical about these levels from the gameplay I've seen online. Don't listen to what reviewers and people say about how it feels weird and clunky. It's just because the control's different than any traditional boost game you played, and its open world controls is also different from the cyberspace controls, so that's why it feels weirder. It feels different. So form your own opinion based on your own experience. Even if it had recycled assets from past games or past levels, I don't mind it much because it plays and feels differently, and most of them were 3D too. But I don't like how the themes are repeated, like Greenhouse Low, Chemical Plants, Sky Sanctuary, and that cyberspace high speed highway looking level. But it wasn't a deal breaker for me to complain about it on Twitter for clout. But the real question is it as good as Generations and Unleashed Boost gameplay? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is simplified take on Boost. The franchise is preaching a new audience who came mostly from the movies and the Roblox game, even though Boost was never a complex gameplay to understand, but it was too arcadey for today's standards, so I get why it was toned down. It doesn't mean it's boring either, so cyberspace is good, it's just good. As for the open world, I get why developers call it an open zone now. It's probably the most thing I enjoyed in Frontiers. And to break it down in a nutshell, I like to call it a glorified collectathon. So if you play traditional 3D Mario like Super Mario 64, Odyssey, Sunshine, it's probably the same thing, but the open world or the island itself acts like a huge open level with many courses and hidden secrets for you to find to get these collectibles. And I'm not going to bore you on what you can collect and what not, but I will say everything you collect goes towards either story progression or Sonic stat increase, or towards chaos emeralds and friend interactions. So what I'm saying, it's not for meaningless stuff like gallery bonuses, and these collectibles are hell fun to collect as you go through many platforming courses and finding them hidden in the overworld. The combat is fun. It never felt like a pace breaker like I thought it would be, even with your initial arsenal of skills, because the enemies this time are fun to fight against. They are not homing attack fodder, except in the tutorial area in the first island. The combat never felt mashy either, as you dodge a lot and react faster to these guys. Even against some soldiers, you couldn't just smash your way out to victory. There are multiple ways to grapple with them. And the mini bosses, okay, let's admit, throughout the franchise, even in the best games, the bosses were always mid or whatever, right? Abusing invincibility frames and always keeping that ring, hence repeat, except for Generations. I think the rival bosses in Generations were so cool, but even then, I digress. Frontiers had reached a high bar with these bosses, from Ninja, Tower, Squid, I forgot most of these guys' names. Okay, so some of them are about hitting them in the right time, and the others are like close one-on-one combat like Ninja. And oh, the Titans. I cannot wait for you guys to play against the Titans. If y'all love Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, Metal Gear Rising, trying to think, God of War, God of War, these bosses will never fail to deliver. It's so hype. Last but not least, how is the music? I think it might even be my favorite in the series. Easy S rank. Even the atmospheric music was top-notch. The vocals were all great and catchy. There are multiple combat and bosses themes, so you would never complain about how you all did in Unleash and how there's only one combat theme and you all get tired of it. No, it's like all of them were fire. There were multiple ones. All of them are good. I love the music versus the tower boss. Not the regular tower. Like there was like a tower in the second island. His name is like Spider Rider, something like that. Like Spider. It's a combination between those two names, and you have to grind around him to weaken him. When you get to his weak spot, the music shifts to a heartbeat intense music as you trying to punch his face as much as trying to punch that weakness. I cannot speak. You also got a bunch of lo-fi music in the overworld, and I'm definitely gonna mod it into my Breath of the Wild because Breath of the Wild failed me in the music department. Okay, so what are the cons? I can't name much. So far I cannot name much. Hardcore Sonic fan might find this game just a good all-around game. For a new entry, this is a must recommend. Also, repetition after beating the game might be an issue, but that depends on how much you can style on these enemies and what the post game is gonna be like. For an almost 12 or like 15 to 20 hours to beat and 30 hours long to 100% the game, that might be more than enough for a Sonic fan to enjoy through all of it. Is it worth $60? I would say to experience the story, it's damn worth it, but if you can magically dodge all these spoilers, you can wait for a sale then. But is it something to pass on? Heck no. I think everyone is going to enjoy the game. It's fun so far. It's filled with content so far. 5 hours into the game, barely through the second island, and there are 5 islands in the game, and there weren't any dull moments in them because you're constantly getting cutscenes and interactions with Sonic's friends. This game's pacing is the strongest feat compared to every Sonic game so far. Common bugs here and there, but yet again, not a pace breaker or game breaking. It lacked a bit of polishness in some animations and bosses, but again, nothing was a deal breaker, at least for the sanest Sonic fan, that is.